Hello everyone, it's me, Clayton. I just got back from seeing Brightburn, a essentially new take on horror with the superhero horror genre that was written by that was written by James Gunn's compatriots and produced by James Gunn himself. Now, when it comes to superhero films, since they're constantly used from year to year, you of course need something interesting to stand out in the genre. Thankfully, Brightburn stands out in the best way possible, since it happens to combine trauma levels of gore with a surprisingly interesting story of what if Superman turned out to be a serial killer. But let's get to the story, shall we? The story is that a couple known as the Bryars in Brightburn, Kansas, ends up finding a baby in a spaceship, and they decide to raise him as their son, sort of like the Kent family took in Kal-El, aka Superman. But, unfortunately, as the child grows up and learns more about his past, he ends up finding out that he has superhuman abilities and decides to do what you've seen him do in the trailers. Now, the story does happen to have a few pacing issues, particularly in the second act, in my opinion, where it does go a little bit too fast, mainly because the runtime is only about 90 minutes. But the stuff that it does get done well is done pretty well. The progression, for example, from Brandon from being a precocious little child into a literal god of death is actually progressed pretty effectively. And also, the typical dumb adults who let this situation go way too far are actually handled a bit better here, because as parents, some adults tend to make it so that they don't believe when their child is doing things that are really this horrible. So you can understand why the mother and the father would act this way, and how even when one of them finally figures out the truth, they try to deny it as much as possible until it simply cannot be denied anymore. So I understand their attitudes throughout the movie, even if the writing around it could be a little bit stronger. Now, when the film actually does get violent and when it does happen to hit those horror vibes, it's actually a lot gorier than you'd imagine, reminding me more of the trauma films, which James Gunn actually worked on before becoming a superstar with Guardians of the Galaxy. So you should definitely know this is a rated R film right off the bat. So if you're at all squeamish regarding that, you definitely shouldn't watch this movie. The acting throughout was pretty good. Elizabeth Banks does a great job as the boy's mother. The fathers also acted well. And, of course, the boy himself, Brandon, has a really good child actor who manages to mix in both the child learning about his past and also the unstoppable killing machine sides of his personality pretty well. You never think it's an act. He's always 100% into the role, and he actually comes across as pretty terrifying at times. Also, stay for the credits, because the credits actually have a pretty darkly humorous gag regarding cinematic universes, which I think is a stab at the DC universe. It made me laugh after the film proper was over. So Brightburn it might not be written or paced the best at all times, but when it works really well. That's why I'm going to give Brightburn a 7.5 out of 10. See you next time.